In recent years, a set of Cherokee DNA results surfaced that no one was supposed to see. The data looked ordinary at first, but when scientists traced the markers, they uncovered something that defied every accepted theory of American origins. What they found in Cherokee bloodlines did not just rewrite history, it threatened to expose something the nation itself was built to forget. The discovery was real, the records were sealed, and what remains is America's darkest secret.
In the early 19th century, the American government and its academic institutions created a version of prehistory that would serve their political goals. They needed a story that placed indigenous people as recent arrivals rather than ancient civilizations. This story began to take shape through anthropology, a young science that depended heavily on government funding. By the mid-1800s, prominent American scholars began promoting the idea that all native peoples came from a small group of hunters who crossed a frozen land bridge between Siberia and Alaska about 15,000 years ago. This land bridge theory was presented as scientific fact, even though it was based on very limited evidence. It explained the presence of Native Americans in a way that fit neatly into the belief that the Americas were once empty lands waiting for progress to arrive. The theory grew in popularity because it aligned perfectly with the politics of the time.
Another Cherokee Nation member is accusing Warren of playing politics. During the era of manifest destiny, American leaders claimed that the nation had a divine right to expand across the continent. The land bridge theory supported this by suggesting that Native Americans were not the first people to inhabit the land, but rather migrants themselves. If they had once traveled from another continent, European settlers could be seen as doing the same. The difference, according to this logic, was that Europeans brought civilization, while the native peoples had remained primitive. This idea turned conquest into rediscovery. The Smithsonian Institution, founded in 1846, became one of the most powerful voices promoting this narrative.
Is what I would call the building of a whole new world.
Many of its early directors and field researchers were tied to government agencies that oversaw expansion into native territories. Their archaeological work was not just about science, it was also a political project. Excavations across the Midwest were often interpreted to fit the new theory rather than tested, ensuring that native peoples were portrayed as late arrivals. Reports often concluded that a lost race had built these structures and that modern Native Americans had replaced them later. This interpretation served two purposes. It denied indigenous people a deep connection to the land and justified removing them from it. Some scholars and field observers challenged this view. Their findings suggested that these civilizations had developed locally over thousands of years. However, their voices were quickly marginalized. Academic journals refused to publish work that contradicted the official line. Researchers who persisted were accused of poor methodology or even fraud. Funding was withdrawn and their field notes were often left unpublished. The result was an academic silence that lasted generations. By the early 20th century, American identity and native history had been reshaped by a convenient lie. The land bridge story gave the United States a moral cover for its expansion, while pushing indigenous civilizations into the shadows of prehistory. But while this theory shaped the nation's self-image, new discoveries in the Appalachian soil and long-ignored Cherokee oral traditions began to surface. What they revealed did not fit the official narrative, and no historian could fully explain it.
When European settlers and explorers began moving into the Appalachian region between the late 1600s and early 1800s, they found remains that did not match any known native culture. These early arrivals included English, Scottish, and Irish frontiersmen who traveled west from Virginia and the Carolinas into Cherokee lands. Some were traders and surveyors who recorded strange features in their journals. They described stone walls and fortifications buried under heavy forest growth. These structures followed patterns unfamiliar to them and unlike the wooden stockades used by local tribes. The masonry was tight and the stones were fitted without mortar, resembling construction found around the Mediterranean. Later, farmers who cleared land in western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee reported uncovering large burial mounds filled with ornaments made of copper and bronze. These metals were not typical of local native use. The Cherokee and other southeastern tribes worked with copper in simple forms, but did not smelt or alloy it. When the items were analyzed, they showed traces of tin, which meant they were bronze. Bronze requires smelting, a complex process that combines copper and tin at high heat, and this technology was unknown to indigenous groups in the area before European contact. By the early 1700s, missionaries and travelers recorded these same mysteries. Moravian missionaries working in Cherokee towns near present-day Georgia and North Carolina wrote about ancient mounds and fort-like stone enclosures whose origins no one could explain. They asked Cherokee elders about these sites and were told stories that did not match the settlers' expectations. According to several accounts, the Cherokee spoke of ancient visitors who came from the sunrise. These visitors were described as light-skinned people who arrived in large boats long before the arrival of Europeans. They carried metal tools and ornaments, unlike anything the Cherokee had seen. Some accounts said the visitors stayed and intermarried with local people. The elders explained that the Cherokee were the native people of this land, but their ancestors had once met these foreigners from across the Eastern Ocean. The Sunrise people, as they were called, were not Cherokee, yet their presence had become part of Cherokee memory. The elders said that some of their knowledge of metal and stone came from this ancient contact, and that traces of these visitors survived in stories and possibly in bloodlines. Archaeological findings from the 1800s supported parts of these oral traditions. In Tennessee, North Carolina, and northern Georgia, early excavations revealed tools and ornaments that did not match native craftsmanship. Many bore geometric engravings and spiral motifs similar to Mediterranean design. Some artifacts contained copper mixed with arsenic, a metal combination known in ancient North Africa but not in the pre-Columbian Americas. When professional archaeologists began cataloging these items, the results caused discomfort. To prevent controversy, some of the finds were reclassified as trade items obtained after European contact. This explanation failed to fit the physical evidence, since many artifacts were found deep in undisturbed burial layers that predated European settlement. In 1848, archaeologists Ephraim Squire and Edwin Davis published a detailed report of mound excavations across the Midwest and Appalachia. Their findings included skulls with narrow faces and high nasal bridges, features that differed from typical regional remains. These physical differences suggested diverse ancestry, meaning the ancient population might have included people of mixed or foreign origins, rather than a single local lineage of indigenous Appalachian peoples, such as the ancestral Cherokee. But such claims were rejected by academic authorities. Government-backed curators discouraged any mention of Old World traits in native burials. As a result, many reports were altered or published without the controversial details. Squire and Davis continued their work, but their observations were quietly dismissed by official institutions that wanted to avoid any suggestion of transatlantic contact. Linguistic studies also pointed to unusual connections. 19th-century linguists comparing Cherokee with ancient Semitic and Berber languages found similarities